Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi. Zevachim Daf Pei Beis. We begin on Pei Aleph Amud Beis at the Mishnah towards the bottom, so it's 6 lines from the bottom. Once again, we have a mix-up between two bloods of two karbanos. So we all know that there are two general types of carbon chatas. There's an external carbon chatas, whose blood is meant to be applied on the external mizbeach, out, in the azara. Then we have the internal carbon chatas, the ones on Yom Kippur, etc., whose dam is meant to be applied internally, meaning on the mizbeach hazohav, the golden mizbeach in the heichal. Suppose both of these bloods got mixed up. Don't know who's who and what's what. Catch-22, where do we go? We go outside, well, some of its blood doesn't belong outside, it belongs inside. If we go inside, we have the reverse situation. Says the Mishnah, you pour it out. There's nothing you can do. Hanetanim b'fnim. The dam which is meant to be done inside, got mixed up in netanim b'chutz. Well, the dam that's meant for outside, you shavchol l'ama. Just pour it into the into the drain, in the azara. Nothing you can do, because you can't take the wrong blood and put in the wrong place in order to accommodate the other one, right? So as we know, that is the opinion of the Rabbanan that we discussed in the last couple of days, and the obvious question is, but according to Rabbi Eliezer, I thought you can just proceed and ignore the other blood, apply it outside and ignore the one that's meant to go inside. Say, well, it's just, even though it's being applied here unnecessarily, we view it as just unnecessary, tag along. It's like water, right? We said the same with upstairs, downstairs. Chatas is meant for the upstairs, oila for the downstairs. If they got mixed up, just keep on going, and the oila blood upstairs is viewed as water. So why don't we say the same thing here? The Gemara, of course, will address this in its first question. Okay, so again, the inside blood with the outside blood got mixed up. Yishav chol amma, poured into the yama. What if he didn't ask any questions and he just moved on? Nasan b'chutz. So it depends how he did it. If he did it outside first, he took some of this mix and did it outside, and then did the same inside. Okay, kasha, ultimately it's okay because he did apply both bloods to both mizbeach, so he covered both karbanos. But if he went the other way, he started inside, bifnim, and he put a little of this mix on the mizbeach in the heichal, which basically means that he imported some of the outside blood into the heichal illegally. Okay, so bifnim v'chazav nas mechutz, and then he took some of this mix and did it outside. This is more complicated. Rabbi Kiva Poisel, he says it's all possible. Rashi explains, b'chitzin, the external dam became possible by being imported into the heichal unnecessarily, as we're going to see in the Gemara. There's a special psul for taking in external blood into the heichal for the sake of kapara. V'chachamim achshirim, they say no, unless we're speaking about an external chatos that was taken inside, then you're right. But otherwise, if it's an oila, shlamim, asham, those bloods, even though they belong outside, but if taken inside, does not invalidate them. Rabbi Kiva disagrees. He says any external blood taken inside becomes puzzle. Sure, Rabbi Kiva, kol damim shenichnasu l'chaper behechel psulin. All external bloods taken into the heichal for the sake of kapara become puzzle. No, chatas bavad, only the chatas. Rabbi Lezer Omer, even the asham as well. Afa asham, as we find several times in our Masechta, we find Rabbi Lezer compares chatas to asham. They're both for atonement, right? Regarding shalei l'shma, regarding this as well. Shnama kechatas ke'asham, just like the chatas, so the asham. Now comes the obvious question: v'nifloig nami Rabbi Lezer baha. Just as in the previous mix-ups, Rabbi Lezer says, just keep on going. Although ultimately some of the blood is ending up in the wrong location, we'll view it as water, and not part of the actual process. Same thing with the mix in our Mishnah. Why don't you just keep on going? Says the Gemara here, it's different, because here we're stuck in a dilemma. There's a halacha of priorities. We want to prioritize certain karbanos to others, depending on the level of kedusha, level of importance. So here the Gemara is assuming that an internal carbon, the chatas, which is meant for the heichal, in terms of sequence, in terms of what comes first, that comes before processing any external carbonates, which are deemed a notch lower, on a lower level of kedusha. So that's why we're stuck. How should he proceed? He has this mix, a container with external blood, internal blood. What should he do first? Should he first do outside, then inside? Well, it's out of order. Just like there's a mitzvah to precede the upper bloods to the lower bloods, meaning the chatas, which is meant on the upper portion of his beach, comes before. You have a choice, right? Which one should I do first? You have a chatas in front of you, you have the oil in front of you, not mixed up. You know what's what. Which one goes first? Chatas comes before oil. Mitzvah lahaktim al tachtonim. Likewise, when you're faced with a choice, heichal or azara, first you do the heichal. Kach mitzvah lahaktim pnim. First comes the internal, lechutz, the external. So we're stuck. You can't first do outside then inside. Okay, so let's go in first. First go inside, do it there, and then come outside. Then you're running into a different issue, because if it's chatos or asham blood and it goes inside, it becomes pasul. You're not allowed to do that. Now I'll go manually, actively render blood pasul, just in order to accommodate, the other carbon. Because we do have that scenario where the chatas, external chatas, or the asham, which is also an external carbon, got mixed up with the internal blood. Where in this case it's much more complicated. Because in those cases, if these bloods were imported into the heichal, they become pasul. That's not allowed for you to do. So, on account of those cases, like psikale, it wasn't a clear-cut allowance. So he sort of didn't want to get involved. He didn't want to, challenge the halacha because of those cases where he would agree. Although if it's not involving chatas v'asham, he would be okay actually with bringing into the heichal, doing it there, and coming out and doing it outside. But since by the chatas v'asham it's pasul, he just held back his opinion, held back from stating his opinion. Okay, now let's shift over to the halacha that we're discussing, importation. Illegal importation of external blood into the heichal. It pertains to what? It pertains to chatas, for sure. Asham, well, according to the Blazer, yes. What about other karbanos that don't belong there? According to Chachamim, and more specifically, we're going to see, it's going to be the Reisi Aglili. He holds it does not affect other karbanos, anything other than chatas. However, according to Rabbi Kiva, stated in our Mishnah, any external blood brought inside illegally becomes pasul. Now the obvious question is, if we take a look at the pasuk, which discusses this phenomenon, it reads like this: V'chol chatas asher yuva, any chatas blood, okay, any chatas asher yuva midama el oil made lechaper hakodesh lo yisayachel b'erish tisarev becomes pasul. Clearly, we're talking about chatas blood. So, what does Rabbi Kiva get? This idea, a source for stretching it and applying it to different karbanos as well. Let me explain to Rabbi Kiva's position. Mashal de Rabbi Kiva, it can be best explained with a mashal, with an analogy. Let's picture the following scene. So a student just offered his teacher a hot drink. Rashi says mazak means dilute. They would mix their heavily concentrated wine with water. Sometimes it would be with warm water, sometimes with cool water. So he just finished serving him a hot mix. And the teacher was so satisfied, the Rebbe was so happy, he says, Mazoigli, and Rashi adds the word bachamin. Let me have another hot drink. Now, why do you have to say another hot drink? Could have just said another drink. Apparently what he's trying to say is, look, it was so good, let me have another one. Even if it's hot, it's also okay. I could use another hot one, but certainly cold. That's why he repeated the word hot. So the Talmud didn't get it, so he asked him, how should I dilute the, what would you like, hot or cold? Amalei, so the Rebbe responded, I just explained, Loi bechamen anu asukin, since we had been involved in hot until now, had I wanted hot, I would have just said, let me have another one, without specifying hot. Why did I, in fact, repeat the word hot, achshav? I meant to say, well, hot was good, and give me another one, it's just as good as cold. I really want another one. Cold and even hot. Just like the one you gave me. Achshav, now, my intention was, bein mechamen b'metzayin, whether hot or cold, either way it's okay, hachanami. Taisis actually learns that he didn't say, let me have another hot one. He just said, mezoigli. Mix me another one. He didn't have to say mix. He could have just said another one, please. What he meant to say is, cold works as well. Well, anyways, the point is that he alluded to something extra. Likewise, when it comes to the pasuk, which had been discussing chatas. So now, when the pasuk proceeds to this concept of importation, illegal importation of chatas blood into the heichal, why make another explicit reference to chatas? We're talking about chatas. Oh, the point is to say, look, it applies to any carbon. And Rashi says, there's a point of mentioning chatas because I would think, since, like we explained before, some versions of the carbon chatas, his blood is meant to go to the heichal. So I would think, you know what, even an external chatas, which is imported, doesn't become invalidated. That's why the Torah stresses even chatas. But really it works on any carbon. Any carbon imported becomes pas. Achanami as well continues the Gemara by the story of the imported blood. Look, we have been discussing chatas. Why repeat it again? Chatas, the word chatas in this pasuk now. The cause of Rachmana, lamali, why repeat the word chatas? Elo lav chatas kaminala, el kol kachim. Rather, the point is, it's not just limited to chatas, it pertains to all karbanis. Maskal Rabbi Yeshua, no, opposite. Just the opposite, michti. Look at the other psukim discussed beforehand. They discussed the requirement to properly rinse out the utensils used in cooking any carbon. So basically, we're alluding to all karbanis. And therefore, when the pasuk comes back and says, when it comes to illegal importation, we make a reference to chatas. Well, chatas, wouldn't you agree that actually a Torah means to limit it, to pinpoint, to specify only chatas and nothing else is affected by this relocation of blood? Actually, the previous psukim were alluding to all karbanis regarding the requirement of rinsing the dishes. So therefore, chatos, the kasser rachmana lamli, why did Torah come back and specify chatos when it comes to relocating blood? Apparently, it's to limit it to chatos, only shmamino chatos, and only a chatos is affected by importation, but not other karbanos. Just the opposite. If you want to compare it to some sort of story, if anything, it's comparable to the following story, which will illustrate my point. It was a Talmud offering his Rebbe all kinds of drinks, hot and cold, all over the place. And then he said, no, I want a hot drink. And please serve me only hot. He said hot because he only wants hot. Sakar Rebbe Kiva apply this halacha to all karbanis. Ella, you're right. Let's move on to a different source. Time what Rebbe Kiva mei chatas v'chol chatas. It could have just said chatas. Why v'chol chatas? To add all karbanis. The Sanya, as we find the same in the Brisa, it could have said chatas. Ein el chatas. From that we learn just a chatas. Kadesh kadashim. What about other karbanis which are considered kadesh kadashim? What about their bloods becoming possible upon entering the heichal? Tamalayma kol chatas. That's why the extra word kol. What about lower tier karbanis like kachim kalim, like a shlomim, kachim kalim? What about those? Tamalayma vit, the extra vav vichal chatas. That's the opinion of Rebbe Kiva. So in fact, clearly this is his source to apply the halacha to all karbanis. Amar lo Rebbe Saglili. He totally disagrees. He says no. Afilu atamarbe kolayim kuloi. Even if you go and cover all karbanis and want to include everything, I'm not going to accept it. Ein yishem elecha. Rather, I believe it's limited to chatas. You're right, all forms of chatas, all variations, private chatas, public chatas, male, female, but only chatas, and no other karbanis. Ella, rather, I hold the word chatas in the pasuk would mean a private chatas, because that's, what the parashas they are speaking about, private karbanis, Rashi says. And the chatas yochad. What about a public chatas? Chatas tzibur menayin. Comes the word kol, tamulema kol, to include even public. Kol chatas. Perhaps only a male chatas. Chatas nekev menayin. What about a female chatas? Tamulema, that's why we have the extra vichol. Now, typically, chatas is a female. So shouldn't he have presented it the other way? Starting point should be, let's assume only nekeva. What about adding zachar? Why do you switch it around? Started with zachar, ended with nekeva. Which way is he going? Which way is the proper approach? Elachika amar, rather, we have to modify it. Perhaps only a chatas nekeva, which is your standard, typical, is affected by this illegal importation, chatas and zachar. What about a zachar? Tam loymar, vichal chatas, to add even the zachar. Okay, so according to Rabbi Kiva, vichal chatas is expanded to include all karbanos. Not so according to Rabbi Yitzchak Lili, we only cover a chatas to all its variations. Ask the Gemara. Ultimately, Rabbi Yitzchak Lili seems to utilize this pasuk of vichal chatas for this purpose of including other variations of chatas. V'savar Rabbi Yitzchak Lili, is that true that he holds that high kruah lahachi de'asa, this pasuk in fact is coming to achieve this goal? But Tanya, we find in Brisa that according to Rabbi Yitzchak Lili, it's applied to a totally different halacha. We're not speaking about blood illegally imported into the heichal. Rather, it's addressing one of those internal karban chatas, like a param hanisrafim, sidam hanisrafim. So, for instance, on Yom Kippur, right? So we have a par v'soyer whose dam is meant to be processed inside in the heichal kedoshim. What happens to the flesh of that karban? It's meant to be burnt. It's meant to be burnt way outside Yerushalayim in a special place. Now, what happens if something goes amiss? There's a mishap. This behemah, this chatas becomes pasa. Where do we burn it? The halacha will be, he's going to tell us that you burn it in the azara, in the Beis Hamikdash, like you burn all other faulty, deficient karbanis. You don't take it outside to harazesim like it would typically be burnt. No, it's puzzle. You burn it like any other puzzle. And that's learned from this pasuk. We're not speaking that it was accidentally taken into the heichal. It's meant to go to the heichal. A real param and esrafim, sidam and esrafim, whose blood is meant to go to the heichal. And then something goes wrong. You're not allowed to eat it, you burn it, but we are the azara like any other carbon that's possible. So according to him, the pasuk relates to a very basic halacha. I'm not speaking about importations, right? This whole discussion is only pertaining ella, rather these cows or goats are meant to be burnt. Their blood is meant to be taken to the heichal, applied there, and the actual carbon burnt outside Yerushalayim. What if it becomes possible along the way? If something goes wrong, it becomes possible. You burn it in the azara. That's number one that we learn from this pasuk. Like any other carbon puzzle, and furthermore, to prohibit eating it. To apply a negative commandment upon eating it. Right? So it's not coming for illegal importation of external blood. So the Chachamim asked him, how are you going to know about illegal importation? This pasuk is being applied for something else entirely different. What about external blood of a chatas imported inside? How do we know that too becomes pasuk? Where's your pasuk? Where's your source for that? Oh, he says I have a different source. Remember the story in Parashat Shmini, the discussion between Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen. He was wondering why they burned the Sarah chatas. He addressed them. He says, look, the blood, nothing went wrong. For instance, if the blood would have been taken into the heichal, it would become pus. That's not what happened, right? Did it happen? They said no. So that serves as a source to this halacha that, in fact, if that external blood had been transported unnecessarily, unjustifiably into the heichal, would become possible. So that's a source to teach us this halacha. Okay, so clearly, Rabbi Yitzchak Lili sources the importation halacha from the pasuk of Hein Lehuva, not from V'chol Chatas. Whereas in the previous brisa, in addressing Rabbi Akiva, he seemed to agree that that pasuk provides the source. The Dvar of the Rabbi Akiva Ka'amar, he was merely relating to Rabbi Akiva on his wavelength. Okay, you source it from this pasuk, I disagree, so on and so forth. But ultimately, his source is really from the pasuk in Parsha Shmini, Hein Lehuva. Okay, so in summation, blood of an external carbon that was transported into the heichal, or the Kodesh HaKodashim, as we'll see later. What happens to it? According to Rabbi Akiva, any blood becomes possible. V'chol chatas. According to Beis Glili, according to Rabbanan, chatas only. According to Rabbi Lezer, even the Yasham. We have two sources. Rabbi Akiva is based on V'chol chatas, Ashiva midama. Beis Glili is based on Hein Lehuva as Dama, L'Kodesh Pnima, back in Parshas Shemini. Continues the Mishnah. Chatas shekibel dama b'shnei kaisos. Okay, no more mix-ups. We have a chatas whose blood was collected by the kohen properly in two containers. A bit in this one, a bit in that one. Yotza echad mehen lechutz. Now one of these containers was taken outside, exported, outside the Beis HaMikdash. It becomes puzzle. Yaitse, right? Once it leaves the confines, it becomes puzzle. What happens to the remaining blood left inside the other container? Does it stay okay, or does it become affected by the exported? Is it one entity or not? Hapnimi kosher, the container that's left back in the azara is still okay. However, nichnas echad mehen b'fnim, if one of these containers with its blood was taken inside, imported into the heichal, according to Chachamim, the entire supply, even the container left in the azara, becomes possible. However, Rabbi Yitzchak Lili machsher, he says the part that's left in the azara is still okay. V'chachamim machsher b'chitzin, the one that's left out, of the heichal. V'chachamim paislim, they say no, it's all one entity. Once part of it is taken to the heichal for the sake of kapara, it's all one kapara, it's all one, carbon, and the whole carbon becomes possible. Amar Rabbi Yossi, he's going to try to, present his position vis-a-vis the Rabban. He says, look, why would you say so? I have a kal v'chomer to prove my position. And only the portion that's inside is possible, but not the part left out. I have a kal v'chomer. We know that machshava invalidates a carbon. So for instance, while the kohen is doing shchita on a carbon, he's thinking, expressing that thought, and says, look, I'm going to do the izrika outside the Beis HaMikdash. That carbon becomes possible. That's called chutz l'mkaimai, right? Wrong location. However, should he think that he's going to be doing the zrika inside the heichal instead of the azara, that doesn't invalidate the carbon. Says Rabbi Yitzchak, okay, so based on that, I'll prove my point. I'll make sort of a correlation between intentions and actual carrying out, actual practice. Ma im b'mkaim she'amachshava peseles b'chutz. Look, b'chutz means outside the Beis HaMikdash, which is a makom, which is affected by thought, by machshava, by intention. If he intends on doing zrika there, the whole carbon becomes possible. So it has that strictness, right? Has that advantage, so to speak. Still, all agree that if he actually takes some dam out, the dam that's left inside does not become affected by that exportation. So thought, yeah, but practice not. We did not render the portion of blood left behind kayotze, like the portion of blood taken out. Meaning if you take part out, the part left behind is still okay. So despite its strictness in terms of machshava, but in terms of action, masa, it's not so strict. Certainly the heichal, which is a makom, she'ena machshava peseles b'fnim. Should the kohen have intention while he's doing the shchita, I'm going to do the zrika on the heichal, it doesn't fault the carbon, doesn't make the carbon possible. So it has that advantage, that leniency, so to speak, that machshava is not affected by pnim, certainly wouldn't you agree, and in terms of practice as well, wouldn't you agree, that even though part of it was nichnas, the mashur, the one that's left behind, does not get affected by it. And that's why I hold, that even if one container was taken to the heichal, the rest remains okay. Okay, we'll see further in the Gemara, further elaboration of this raging debate. Continues the Mishnah. We speak about importing dam into the heichal. Nichnas lachaper. So you took it in with the intention of applying it to the mizbeach, to process it. Afavishally keep it possible, even though he didn't actually carry out his intention. He didn't do kapara. He just brought it in. He didn't get to do kapara. It's still possible. Divei, that's the shita of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shimon, no, actually chaper, unless he actually applies it to the mizbeach. Rabbi Daima, michnas shegi kosher. He does it unintentionally, not realizing that it's the wrong carbon. It's okay. Concludes the Mishnah. Kol adam psulim, all deficient dam, shenitnu al gam mizbeach, which were applied to the mizbeach. After the fact, we don't say, okay, it's done, it's okay. Lo, you hear it's a tzatzitz, the foreplate, the tzitz, which has the words Kodesh Hashem sitting on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol, does not override, doesn't address it, doesn't accommodate it, doesn't, make it kosher. Ella, we have one exception, Allah tummy, if the blood becomes tummy and it was processed, the tzitz addresses it and is machshir the korban. Shatzitz meratz ala tummy, because the tzitz can do that for tummy, ve'enoi meratz ala yotze, but not for other deficiencies such as yotze. Tanya, let's go back to the machlokes. Amar v'seglili avakal v'chomer, that when part of the dam went into the heichal, only that becomes possible, not the rest. Kal v'chomer. Okay, this is sort of a repetition of the Mishnah's kal v'chomer, because even outside the Beis Hamikdash where machshava affects that place, still when you actually take some dam outside, it will not invalidate the remaining inside. Certainly the heichal, which is not affected by a thought process. Certainly wouldn't you agree that if you take part of it to the heichal, that dam pasal will not infect the part that stayed outside? Amrulai, Chacham responded, we have a pasuk that even partial imputation affects the entire supply. We have this pasuk, if some of the blood was taken inside, even part of it, it affects the entire supply. So he says, okay, if that's the case, why don't we apply the same stringency to yaitse, to exportation? Partial exportation shouldn't affect the entire supply. Which you agree, even you agree it doesn't, right? Based on this, we can build up a kavachem even for yaitse. That partial we would consider like the entire. Because even the heichal, which is not affected by thinking, still poisel dam shebifnim eshebachutz, partial imputation will infect the entire supply. Certainly outside the Beis Hamikdash, which is a makom, which is affected by machshava, right? If during the shechita he had a mind to do the zrika outside, the whole carbon is pasul, so it has that strictness. And it wouldn't you agree that if actually some of the blood was exported, the entire supply should become pasul? The part that's outside it became pasul should now spread and affect the entire thing, even the one remaining inside. The shebifnim. Amrulai, once again, they responded with a pasuk. Haru oimer asher yuva. The pasuk says, asher yuva midama. And we learn from here, hanichnas poisel ve'ein hayotze poisel. Only the dam that's taken into the inside invalidates the rest, but it doesn't apply. The Rashi says midamah. Sounds like it's a mapekei midamah. It's blood. Only in this case, importation, affects the entire thing. Hanichnas poisel v'nei poisel. But at this partial infecting the entire thing does not apply to yaitse. Okay, so bottom line is, in terms of machshava, all agree, machshava only relates to outside, not to inside. In terms of relocating of dam, when you take dam outside, only that becomes possible, not the rest. When you take dam inside, Here as well, Rabbi Yitzchak says, only that part becomes pasul, not the rest. Chacham say the entire thing becomes pasul because midama says even partial. But again, this only applies to importation, not to exportation. Says the Gemara, you know what? Let's take it a step further. We're assuming that machshava only affects outside, not inside. Why? Who's to say? Perhaps, just like machshava is applicable outside, should be applied inside as well. For instance, if he had machshava during the shechita, I'll bring the dam and be zarek in the heichal, it should become pasul as well, based on al-kal v'chaymer from outside. Just as machshava is pasul outside, the same inside, with a kal v'chaymer, based on this logical arrangement. Since we find that regarding exporting, right, so the partial exportation of dam does not invalidate the remaining blood inside. So it has that leniency. Still, machshava paisalas b'chutz. Still, machshava does affect outside. Certainly, when it comes to the heichal, where partial affects the entire thing, machshava should also be detrimental there as well. The heichal, which is a location where partial importation affects the entire thing, according to the Chachamim. And Rashi seems to say that we're suggesting even according to Rizak Lili as well. Okay, in any case, wouldn't you agree that machshava should also pertain to the heichal? For instance, if you intend on doing zrika in the heichal, the carbon should be pasul. Why not? The answer is we have a pasuk which exempts the heichal from machshava. Haru Yoimer, the pasuk says by Shlishi, which Rashi says refers to chutlim kaimai. Shlishi means a triple place. What does triple mean? Malkaim, shemesh shulosh, bedam, a place which could accommodate, at least in some fashion, in some point in history. For instance, outside the Beis HaMikdash, where they had bamais, right? When there was no Beis HaMikdash, they had these altars where they would bring karbanos. So basically, it could accommodate everything, all elements of a carbon, blood, a mur in the fats burnt on the bama, and the basar eaten outside. So outside is a place that could accommodate all three elements of carbon. So thinking about doing it outside, inserting that element into your carbon, messes up the carbon. But having in mind to do it in the heichal, which is not a place meant for these three things. You don't do a mur in the heichal, you do basar in the heichal, so it's not a place that can interfere. Okay, so now we know machshava only pertains to outside, not to inside. Says the Gemara, you know what? Why don't we twist the kal v'chaymer the other way and arrive at a very interesting, actually untrue conclusion, incorrect halacha. Perhaps we should consider even a machshava about chutz, about doing it outside, as a non-issue. Based on kal v'chaymer. If a kain has a machshava to do zrika outside, it shouldn't become pasul. Why? Because even the heichal, which is a place where if dam is imported, partial importation does not invalidate the rest. Sorry, it does, right? The heichal is a place where if you take some dam, the dam that came inside became pasul, makes everything, even the rest of the dam that's outside also gets swept along and is pasul. So despite this strictness, ein machshava peiselas, machshava doesn't play a role regarding the heichal, as we have just concluded. Right? Certainly, when it comes to outside the Beis HaMikdash, which is a makom shlei pasal dam shebechutz es shebefnim, where if you do partial exportation, it does not invalidate the dam left behind. So it has that leniency. Ein adin, wouldn't you agree? Shelo yeh paisel machshava bechutz. Likewise, machshava should not be detrimental in that area. Talmud Leimer, no, we have a pasuk for that. So, Mepharshim explained, the Gemara, of course, knew this pasuk. Taisus actually asked, if the Gemara didn't know the pasuk, so then the whole Gemara, we didn't know about machshava paisela, so how we get started. Some Mepharshim explained that we knew the pasuk, but that's the derech HaGemara to sort of chew it through and elaborate step by step and, reconcile the psukim with logic and vice versa. So we have a pasuk, Talmud Leimar, Shlishi. The pasuk says, look, you can't have any thoughts about wrong time or wrong place. Shlishi, that's chus lezmane, wrong time. The word pigel, chus l'mkami, refers to wrong location. So it's a pasuk which says that a machshava about b'chutz makes your carbon pasuk. Okay, one more spoke in the will that we have to explore is actual yaitse. Okay, so if you take some kosher material and take it outside the Beis Hamikdash, that part, at least that part, becomes possible, and that pertains to basar to dam. So basar hayetze l'chutz, basar taken outside is possible, as we're going to see later based on a pasuk. What about a nichas lefnim? You imported some of the basar into the heichal. Imported dam becomes basar. What about imported basar? Kosher, no problem. It doesn't invalidate anything. Because in reality, logic would dictate otherwise. Shehi bedin she pasal. I would think it's pasal. Why? Just like if you import dam, it's pasal. Likewise, a basar. Uma b'makam shlei pasal dam shebachutz shebifnim. Because let's focus on yaitze, on outside the Beis Hamikdash as our starting point, which is a place where if part of the dam was exported, that part will not spread over and infect and invalidate the blood that remained behind inside. So it has that leniency. Still, basar yaitze l'chutz pasal. If you actually take out basar, it becomes pasal. Certainly, when it comes to heichel, which is a makom shepasal dam shebifnim shebachutz, even partial importation of dam invalidates the entire supply. So it has that strictness. Wouldn't you apply the same to basar? Basar hanechnas b'fnim in addition. If so, wouldn't you agree that basar taken inside should become pasal as well? Just like when it's exported, harayu omer midama. Rashi says, it says the word dama twice. Asher yuva is dama midama. It says vehin lo yuva is dama. We had those two psukim and Vayikra at the beginning and in Shmini. Harayu omer midama. We learn from there. Dama v'lei basar, only blood imported becomes pasal, but basar into the heichal is not pasal. Okay, now let's flip around this logic and perhaps come up with a leniency that even exported basar should remain kosher. Because let's focus on the heichal as a starting point. It's a place where even partial importation of dam affects the entire supply, as discussed. Nevertheless, basar taken into the heichal remains okay. Basar nichlas lefinim is kosher. Certainly, when it comes to exporting outside the Beis Hamikdash, which is a makom shalei pasal dam shebachutz eshevifnim, where partial blood taken out does not affect the entire thing, wouldn't you also agree that basar hayetze l'chutz in addition kosher? Some flesh taken outside should not become pasal. No, we have a pasuk for that. Basar besad the treifa, basar taken out to the field, which means outside of its confines, outside of its mechites, outside the Beis Hamikdash, loy. You shouldn't be eating it. We learn kima shayatza basar chutz l'mechitzasa. Once the basar was transported outside its confines, outside the Beis Hamikdash, neser becomes asur, and that ends our discussion. Okay, so let's just organize what we have. We have machshava, we have intentions, we have masa, we have practice. So we speak about exporting outside the Beis Hamikdash, importing into the heichal. So in terms of machshava, we concluded based on the psukim, machshava of outside makes pasal, machshava inside doesn't make pasal. In terms of actually transporting material, it depends what. Dam, okay, exported outside becomes pasal. Imported into the heichal becomes pasal, and furthermore, according to the Chachamim, it affects the entire supply of the carbon, which now becomes pasal. According to Risek, only that part becomes pasal, but the remaining dam and the azar is still okay. And in terms of transporting basar, if you take it outside, that basar becomes pasal, but not so if the basar was merely taken into the heichal. Now, when we speak about importing dam, does it relate only to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the holiest of holy, all the way inside, or even to the heichal? So we're standing in the azar. We're speaking about transporting into the heichal. Let's call it area B, right? We're in area A in the Azara. So is it only area B that makes it possible, or do you need to go all the way to area C in the Kodesh HaKadoshim to make it possible? The answer is both. Tana Rabbanan. The pasuk over there in Parsha Shmini. Hein lo Yehuva as Dhamma. Why did it become pasul? It wasn't brought into the Ela Kodesh, which means the Heichal Pnima, all the way inside into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, apparently. Either zone wouldn't validate the blood. Tan Rabbanan, the word Pnima would mean Ein Ela Pnima, maybe only the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What about the Heichal? What about the Heichal, zone 2? Zone B, Tamalayim Ela Kodesh Pnima. Pnima is all the way inside. Kodesh means zone B, the Heichal. Now, the question is, why do you need to express both? Once we know that Kodesh, which means the Heichal, is a problem. Certainly the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is even deeper and more holy, certainly doesn't belong there, and certainly would become possible. Why trouble yourself to mention both? Say one and we'll figure out the other one. Kodesh, let him merely say Kodesh. Heichal, I'll know on my own. Obviously, if you go even deeper and holier, your blood becomes pasul. I'm a Rava. You're right. But you realize the Torah didn't specify the words Heichal or Kodesh HaKadoshim. Rather, it said Kodesh. What is Kodesh? Anyone's guess. Pnima, anyone's guess, right? So that's why Torah has to say both. Because otherwise, imagine if the Torah would only say the word Kodesh without Pnima. I wouldn't know. I would say, you know what, maybe Kodesh really means Kodesh HaKadoshim only, all the way into zone C, but zone B does not have this effect. But now that it says Kodesh and Pnima, clearly referring to two locations, two zones, inevitably you know. One is going to be the Heichal, that's Kodesh, and Pnima means the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And we find a similar phenomenon in a different pasuk. Mididahava, like we find Atoisha v'Sacher. Pasuk says, although the non-Jewish slave owned by a kohen can share in his truma, but not a Jewish slave. Now there are two types of Jewish slaves: short-term, the one that's meant to work for 6 years and leave, and then we have the Taishav, the long-term Jewish slave, the Eved Nirtza, the one that got his heirs board because he likes to, he wants to stay on, so he got his heir board, and he's going to stay there till Yovel. Can they share the kohen's truma? No, because they're not really his possessions. And the pasuk, takes pain to point out that both types of Jewish slaves cannot partake in the master's truma. This Sanya, we have a pasuk, we have a brisa on this pasuk. Toishav v'socher, Toishav kohen v'socher lo yechal kodesh. And the brisa explains that the word Toishav means a long-term slave. He cannot eat truma, even though he's here long-term. The word Sacher is a short-term slave. He's only here for several years. Now, why mention both? All you need to say is long-term doesn't eat, and certainly short-term because he's less connected, right? So why bother mentioning both? It's a feist to state the Taishav, which is the long-term permanent slave, that he cannot share truma without need to stipulate the halacha of the short term. But I'll conclude on my own, obviously. The long-term slave can't partake in this truma. Certainly the short-term slave, who's less owned by him, right? So why mention both? The answer is because these terms, Toishav and Sacher, are really undefined terms that could be sort of manipulated either way. Ilu Kain, if the Torah would only say the word Taishav, I wouldn't really know what it means. I would say, you know what, Taishav maybe it means short term. That's why you can't eat, but long term could. So to avoid that misconception, the Torah mentions both. Now we covered both, short and long term, right? Ilu Kain, if only the word Taishav, I would speculate that the word Taishav means short term. He cannot eat. But perhaps but the long term slave, can eat. That's why Sacher without Taishav, Torah says both, Sacher and Taishav. The word Sacher reveals to us the true meaning of Taishav. Sacher is short, Taishav is long. So this one is long. Sacher is short. Both cannot eat. Likewise over here. Kodesh Pnima. Heichal, Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because if it only says Kodesh, I wouldn't necessarily conclude it's the Heichal, and then certainly Kodesh HaKadoshim. No, I would say it's the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and the Heichal is left out of this restriction. That's why it says both. Only Abai response. I don't understand the comparison between our discussion and the slaves. Big difference between the two. You see, over there, truthfully, the Torah could have been much more, short-handed in its presentation. Simply by clearly saying, long-term Eved Nirtzah, the one that had his ear bored, he cannot eat. He cannot share the Truma. That's all the Torah should have said, or could have said. And then, on my own, I would just figure out, based on logic, based on Kal V'chomer, the long-term can't, certainly the short-term can't. So, theoretically, the Torah could have just sufficed with that. But you know what? Sometimes we find that the Torah elaborates a bit further, enumerates and clarifies for us, even something that we can figure out on our own. And that's why the Torah took the trouble to spell it out. You should know long-term and short-term cannot partake, because, after all, they're two different people. So it makes sense to list them as separate. But over here, you can't get to zone C without walking through zone B. You can't get to the Kodesh HaKadoshim without first taking the blood through zone to the Heichal. So speaking about Kodesh HaKadoshim and validating your blood is totally superfluous. Once we know that going through the Heichal would have the same effect, because you're done. Once you take it to the Heichal, you're finished. There's no further. You're apostle. So it's totally redundant to speak about two different zones when you can't get to one without going through the other. That's Abayi's kasha. I understand that in terms of slaves, ultimately, they're two people. Okay, so for clarification purposes, we mentioned both. Although truthfully it was really unnecessary, the Torah could have easily said the word nirtza, a long-term slave should not eat, and we would know on our own that the short-term slave cannot because of a kal v'chomer. Okay, sometimes the Torah does add for clarity. Milsa, a concept, a halacha, the asab kal v'chomer that couldn't theoretically be derived from a kal v'chomer, Torah sometimes goes out of its way and elaborates on that. Okay, but ultimately, because it's still two people, so it makes sense to speak of them as two different halachas. But in our case, where it's one root, once the blood that was transported through zone B, the heichal becomes puzzle, it's done deal. My boy, what's the point of speaking about going further into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? I'll tell you why we mentioned Kodesh HaKadoshim. Just in case he happened to sneak his way into the Kodesh HaKadoshim through sort of back entry, some sort of skylight. In which case he didn't really walk through the Heichal. Oh, how do we know that? Makes his dam puzzle. That's why we have a pasuk. Amalei Rava says, but in your case of a backhanded entry, it wouldn't invalidate the blood. Pasuk says, Asher Yuva Midama, it was imported, properly brought in like you bring a carbon, not through some sort of backwater entry. Hello, Rava says, Rava, I'll tell you why. The pasuk has both. Heichal and Kodesh HaKadoshim mentioned. You're right, typically, once you go into the Heichal, you're apostle. What if he intended on bringing the blood all the way into the Kodesh HaKadoshim? That was his destination. Destination, Kodesh HaKadoshim. Says Rava, Chidush. Hello, Rava, Kol Midi Dechashav Lefnei Lefnim. The dam that he planned on bringing all the way inside, Loi Mifsal B'Heichal, in fact, would not become affected by the Heichal. Yeah, if you plan on going to the Heichal only, once you step in there, it's possible. But if he plans on traveling all the way to the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the dam will not become possible until he reaches his destination, his kapara's destination. So, for instance, if he's still in the Heichal, he can turn around and leave, and it's okay. That explains why we need two psukim. Kodesh is Heichal, if destination is Heichal. Pnima is Kodesh HaKadoshim, if destination is there. Boyro, now comes an interesting question. So we speak about illegal importation of dam into the Heichal, or Kodesh HaKadoshim invalidating that dam. Until now we spoke about external karbanis, a chatas which is meant to stay outside, likewise an oil, etc. What if you have a type of carbon whose blood is meant to go into the heichel? Okay, so that's fine. What if he decides to push the envelope a bit further and take the dam all the way to the Kodesh HaKadoshim? Interesting question. What happens now? It's out of place. It's imported, but maybe it's different. This is an example of an internal carbon chatas. Whose blood is meant for the heichel. But he went further, deeper inside. He went all the way to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. What's the status of this blood? Shall we say, look, the pasuk covered both zones. And perhaps it's like one package. Either they both apply or none. And in this case, heichel is not an issue. It belongs on the heichel, right? Shall we say, Ela Kodesh Penima. And Kodesh meant heichel, Penima meant Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's only a problem if both Yisurim apply, if both locations are problematic. But not in this case. Any situation where we apply the Isur of the heichel. We apply the Isur of the Kodesh HaKadoshim as well. But not in this case, but in this case where we don't apply any Kodesh restriction, it belongs in the Kodesh. Perhaps we don't apply the other restriction as well, like Karina Prima. Or on the other hand, you can say, look, after all, it's in the wrong place, and it becomes possible. We're not sure. If you adopt this view that ultimately it's out of place, and it becomes possible, here comes another question, more interesting case. Par Visur Shol Yom Kippurim. Now these karbanas have three stations, three phases of blood applications. All the way inside Kodesh HaKadoshim by the Arain, by the Badim, between the poles. Next phase is outside in the heichel against the curtain. Next phase is outside by the Mizbeach in the heichel. Suppose he took the blood all the way inside as he's supposed to, and he came back to the heichel for phase 2. And he decided, I'll go back in. What happens now? Does it become puzzle? She's a midavan al badim, whose blood was applied to the bad, by the Arain in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So far, so good. And he took the blood out to the heichel, and he decided to go back in again. What's the status now? Shall we say, look, it's different. Since initially it belonged in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it relates to that makom. It's not considered illegal importation as as the other cases, and therefore it does not become puzzle. Or no, once it left, it no longer belongs there, and taking it in is an illegal importation like anything else. Now, if you'll adopt this view, that once it left, doesn't belong there. Next question: he's a medavan al paricha. Suppose he applied the blood on the curtain in the heichel. He's done, and he went out within the same room, within the same heichel, but he went out to the other side of the mizbeach to do the dam there, mizbeach, and then he decides, you don't come back in to this side of the heichel. What's the status of this blood? On the one hand, you can say, look, it's all one room, one location. That's not considered importation. Or you can say, no, he took it into the internal section of the heichel where it doesn't belong. Rashi explains the Torah in describing him going out to the mizbeach uses the word v'yotza. He went out to the other side of the mizbeach, to the eastern side of the mizbeach. He's coming from west to east, and he goes to the eastern side of the mizbeach. That's like a new location, a new section of that same. It's like a different domain, different zone. And likewise, when he brings it back into this side, it's like he's importing, and it becomes a puzzle. Take it, we'll leave it unresolved. Okay, let's do a quick chazara. Illegal importation of dam into the heichel or Kodesh HaKadoshim invalidates the blood. According to the Chacham, the entire blood supply becomes possible. According to the only that portion brought inside. There's a condition attached, which is lechaper. It has to be with the intention of doing kapara with this blood, not just taking a stroll. According to Reb Shimon, it takes it a step further. Dafka, if he actually did kapara with it. Now, which karbanis? According to Chacham, only chatas. Rulaza even asham. According to Reb Akiva, all karbanis would have this halacha. What is the source of this halacha? Either v'chol chatas hashiva midama or lehuva es dama al kodesh pnima in parsha shemini. In terms of machshava, that only invalidates when you're thinking about outside, not inside. In terms of psul yaitse, that only invalidates the basar or the dam taken out, but not the rest. In terms of psul nichnas, Only dam gets affected and everything with it, according to the Chachamim, but not basar taken into the heichal. That doesn't become pasul. We explained why we need a pasuk for heichal and kodesh hakadoshim, according to Rava, for a case where he intended on taking it all the way inside. It only becomes pasul once it gets inside, but not on its way. We discussed an interesting question, actually two questions. A carbon whose dam is meant for the heichal, what if it's taken to the kodesh hakadoshim? Next question, blood was meant for the kodesh hakadoshim, once it was in there and taken out, what happens if it's taken back in? We leave it as yet unresolved. Teku. All the best to you and much hatzlach.